Yes, but not in the way you're thinking, okay? Liquid beat Navi twice, and that can't be that much of a fluke. However, if you look at the way map 3 in the second best of 3 went, which is this game here, Liquid only get 3 rounds on their T side of Inferno, and this is a map where definitely 3 rounds isn't what you're looking for in general, but the 3 rounds they got are the pistol round and the 2 following anti-ecos. So there's a universe where Liquid walk into a stack, because on pistol round this time they walked into only one player B. If Liquid walk into a stack and lose, they might have just gotten like 13-3'd or something if they won second half pistol. You know, they won both pistols in this game, and it was very close, which I think kind of implies a bit of flukiness, or at least luck in the way that the exact game went down, especially when you look at second half and you have Ultimate going something like 16-2. And he's been impressive, but that's, you know, better than you can really expect from almost anyone. This round is the one I started with because that stack is hilarious, and I like the way Liquid did it, where they had the A setup, the A hit was ready to go, and then they send Yakindar in, and they say, you know, if he sees people, then we'll hit A, and if he doesn't see anybody, then maybe we go back B. But what that does mean is that when Yakindar crossed and saw that whole stack, he had nobody nearby to throw a flash to get him out of the corner. He was just completely screwed. But there go the first 2 rounds, and third round, actually, I'll admit, I thought this was like a conversion to begin with, but it's actually a buy here from Navi. Now, one of the things Navi like to do on these early round buys is they like to do some stacks, because once you use that early utility like they use to go for banana control here, you don't actually have a lot to work with, right? They've got 4 smokes, but only 1 flash other than that. Navi do get full banana control, really well done by Ime, and Liquid are stuck in a 4v5. Now, Liquid have some options here, and they have quite a bit of utility themselves. Now, one of the things that they did in the previous game that was actually very notable is that the previous game ended off on a very specific setup from Navi. Navi were actually in a setup very similar to this. Liquid were on a force buy, and they actually gave Navi banana control and then chased down Wonderful, who was holding a half wall at the time, and they ran into a 3-man stack. Now, they're starting up the first gun round this time by doing the exact same thing, but this time around, Navi's actually stacked on the other side. Now, JL is actually in a pretty decent spot here to potentially get more than 1, but that little delay there is exactly what catches him, and once he dies, the rotate tries to come in, but once the CT smoke is there, I think you're pretty much never winning this one, right? So then the streak begins for Navi from here, and one of the things that happened the previous time they played this map is that Navi were kind of losing the banana control battle a good portion of the time, and that means either they were throwing a lot of utility not to get damage done, or they were never really getting full bottom banana control. And you can see that that's what they tried to do in the previous game, in the previous round, where JL, you know, Ime pushed down, JL had full control, and they could have been at the bottom of banana. That didn't work out for them, and this time they play a little more passive, but they still do force Liquid to use a bit of utility to take banana themselves. Now, Liquid do, again, a very good job of this. They don't take almost any utility damage to begin with, but I wanted to note the timing of this flash, because JL's going to swing half wall here, and Twist is ready for this flash, right? He's expecting it. He sees it, turns, but JL actually peeks out as that flash lands, not after it lands, where Twist would have been turned back around. I don't think you can necessarily replicate that in matchmaking. It's probably going to get you killed, but at this level, it's a very interesting use. Now, looking at this play from Liquid, I'm going to rewind it, because this play from Liquid, I feel like, is still... I'm not a huge fan. So I think they're kind of on different pages here as to what the plan is. If you can beat the arch rotate, you can still go B for sure, and I think that's what they're trying to do. But this arch rotate begins now, right? So there's a timer as soon as you make that initial contact. Now, Yakindar gets this kill onto Alexi B, and they get smoked off right afterwards. Now, Yakindar wants to go for the push through, but he misses the nade, which is key, because in this case now, maybe JKS could push through and be the first one out, but definitely Yakindar can't be, because he has to wait for his own nade and the fact that it damaged him. And then they still go through, which they probably just can't once that smoke is back up. I mean, I think resetting there is completely reasonable, because they were 4v4, I think, right? And I mean, they lost banana control. It wasn't a great situation. Optimally, I think you go through there if you can. just because you've already committed so much resources and you've got all your players here, so it's hard to go back and retake the map control. There's lots of problems if you go back. However, once that nade is missed, I think they just have to cancel. But I mean, that's a round where that actually could reasonably have gone Liquid's way if, you know, maybe you had JKS swing off of that nade, or the nade landed where it didn't damage JKS, so he wasn't slowed and he could swing off of that, and he killed JL. They actually had a very good chance into that round, but it was the force through the smoke that caused the problem. And again, we're going to be back to some contest in Banana. Now, one of the other things that happened in the previous matchup was that Naf kind of got away with a lot in apartments and used that to his advantage quite a bit. And I think that Navi are going to want to try and deal with that in a certain way themselves. Now, here, I wanted to note that, you know, Yukindar, if this goes wrong for Yukindar and he dies, that can go very badly, right? That can look really dumb. However, if he never goes for this, he's just not taking enough map control and he's not putting pressure. And if he goes for this sometimes, he might actually get information onto the setup that Navi is playing for the following round. Now, in this case, they have no option of going back B if Yukindar doesn't actually go for this information, because JL and Alexi B both have smokes. They're just going to get smoked off that they go back. So this is actually a pretty good situation, just the way it plays out, that to go for this. Now, on the other side of the map, Ime throws the molly, then he's going to throw a flash. The idea is to pull a player that's looking truck side to look arch to support his teammate, but because Liquid has 3 players here, doesn't actually work out. And not only does 1 kill go their way, but a 2nd kill is going to go their way as well, as Ime tries to get the kill back and JKS doesn't let it happen. Then this is a play that's very similar to one I actually praised, or at least I defended Kerrigan for, I believe at the major, where he went through a smoke and he died and it looked really bad. And I was saying, well, you had no choice because there was no time. Now here, there is time, so there is a bit of a choice. However, they still want to make sure that they're not walking into a stack, because Navi, as I mentioned before, is a team that does like doing some gamble stacks, especially early on in the half. So Yukindar goes for the information. The problem is, I didn't catch it, but Yukindar was spotted. So JL spotted Yukindar, didn't shoot at him, and that means Alexi B can turn around, and by the time that kill happens, Liquid has no choice but to go B. And unfortunately, although they'll kill LXCB, there's no reason for them to expect a 2nd player here, because otherwise, how the hell did Yukindar get into CT spawn? Well, how it happened is that JL got kind of lucky on the timing and saw Yukindar and then actually did kind of a 300 IQ play to let him go by and get the kill later. Now, after a bit of a force buy and then an eco where Liquid didn't get anything going at all, they go back into a gun round. And one of the things that I'll note that I see from Bit, I feel like Bit actually plays quite passive when it comes to apartments, up until right around the time that the op is spotted somewhere on the map. And I think that makes sense specifically to deal with this type of play from Wonderful and Bit, where Wonderful is opping long haul, Bit's in there. If you're dealing with riflers, I think you can be pretty aggressive in apartments. If you don't know, or you're dealing with an opper or something like that, then it's easy for that opper to get a kill as long as he doesn't whiff, right? Now, on the other side of the map, you've got Yukindar, who delayed outside of Banana for a few seconds, then goes back in. Everything's normal. And Liquid want to get some information, but they're not being given anything quite yet. And Ime smoking mid from arch side does make it seem a little less likely that an apartment setup might be coming in. It definitely means there's not 3B if there's a double apartment setup, but there's Wonderful to get the kill onto Nav. And now you have immediately a 4v5. And although Liquid might consider going back to B off of this, you've got Alexi B jiggling with the smoke, and they haven't drawn out enough utility, I think, is the problem, to even consider going back to B. They still have to kind of play out the round and take some map control for themselves. So they take away that smoke from Alexi B, which means, you do actually have a rotate from Ime coming over to B, and Liquid will try and end on the A side here. They haven't made much noise at all, so they're in a reasonably decent situation to go for it, but the time is very low, and it's kind of crazy actually to see Ultimate rotating back around long haul with this little time, 25 seconds. It's going to be very close. Now, on the hit, I don't know, I'm not a huge fan of what happens on this hit specifically, because Yukindar is going to toss this flash, JKS is going to swing out off off of it, see a pit player, pull out a molly it, and then get kind of stuck here, and so they have no ability to kill Bit in sight, and the Wonderful and Pit also got a kill as well. And the problem I have is just, if Yukindor has 2 flashes here, I think he can double flash so that JKS maybe can swing at a sight. It just feels like they're kind of caught between 2 different ideas here. One of the things that you might see teams do is they might like clear this and immediately molly Pit so that this player that jumps into Pit from balcony can actually catch that player that has to swing out of Pit and leave and, you know, get to safety. But instead, because of this delay where JKS peeks, shoots, then pulls out the molly, then Wonderful has a peek he can actually make on twists here that's actually reasonable. He's not getting forced into the open quite nearly as quickly. Watching this back, I feel like the best play has to be that JKS just comes around the corner initially and mollies Pit instantly, because Ultimate is in apartments long haul and can swing balcony to trade on anyone that kills him from sight if that is what happens, and that would actually allow Twist to get the kill on the player in Pit, and then JKS and Ultimate, assuming JKS doesn't get shot by someone from sight immediately, can kind of work together to kill the guy in sight. And that also gives JKS that little bit of extra delay where Yukindor can catch up to him because he jumps around the corner and then throws the molly. But I don't know. So Liquid have been playing pretty slow on Banana, and they've noticed that Navi are very consistently just holding on to a lot of their utility and doing stuff like Alexi B jiggling CT with the smoke. So they want to go for a heavy Banana play, but Navi sees the exact same thing and goes for the exact same play. And funnily enough, because of the timing of these flashes, JL actually dies to this molly because he sees a molly incoming, thinks it's going to be a car molly, tosses a smoke down, he's still blind here, and it's actually a really good sandbags molly that gets the entire sandbag. Then you have Ultimate go for this play through the smoke here, which is risky, but his 2 teammates at Banana with him died. So I think in that case, going for that type of play makes a lot of sense. You're already 3v4, so you're already at a disadvantage, and it's kind of like we're losing this round anyways. The upside is putting us into a very good situation to potentially win. The downside is that you know, if I die, well, we're already losing the round, right? So it's not that big of a deal. And then they want to set up for a fairly fast B hit off of that, which makes a lot of sense. But the problem is that Bit got too much information at apartments. And this is, again, one of the things that I think Navi was lacking in the previous game was this type of information from Bit, the aggression, and actually getting that info in apartments. So Bit gets all that info, gets the flank, and not only that, he kills Naf with a nade in his hand. So Naf takes someone out with him, which leaves JKS into a 1v2, and this is not really all that winnable. Now, online, maybe he could get this kill onto Wonderful as he peeks out, but I think on LAN, as long as Wonderful doesn't miss, he's not getting that kill almost ever. So just like that, Liquid's lead is gone, and they're just at a massive disadvantage. And I think the idea here for Navi is that in the previous round, Liquid tried to go for fast top banana control to counter what Navi was doing, where they were holding on to a lot of their utility for quite a while. And this makes a lot of sense. However, Liquid ran it into a setup where Wonderful went for the peak, got the initial kill, and it was just not the right setup for that play. However, Navi don't run Wonderful B very much at all. It's like, I think I've watched like 25 gun versus gun rounds and he's done it like twice, right? It's like not common at all. So maybe off the back of a pause, Liquid is thinking of doing the same strat again, and we can try and counter that by going for a heavy B play ourselves, which makes a lot of sense, but Liquid decide not to do that, in fact, and just have, you know, Yukindor begin outside of B. He'll go for the molly, remolly on car, and you actually have Naf that comes fast into apartments and nades Boiler instantly to dunk Bit for 50 damage, which is insanely effective. And at the same time, Liquid just go for this very quick mid control, although JKS takes 20 damage from his teammate's molly. They just go for a pretty fast mid control, and now you have Liquid that haven't used that much utility. No, actually, I take that back. They've used quite a bit of utility. But Liquid, very early on in the round here, is in a pretty good spot to go for a variety of different plays, and Navi has lost all of mid control. So they'll throw an arch smoke that blocks off Wonderful entirely. And then Navi in this situation, I mean, although they have full banana control, but they actually don't know what Liquid's doing. And Wonderful is kind of isolated here, where he could get kind of caught off guard in different ways. And it's hard for him to lock down both sides of this play. Because if he goes into library to cover the CT to B split, he can actually just get smoked off and then Liquid 5v2 the two A players. But if he doesn't go into library and he backs up Moto or Sight, well, then Liquid can split B really effectively, or they can wrap into library themselves, and then the Opper and Sight has to be staring at like the most passive angle ever. So Ime, I think, wants to fight out from that, and maybe they have an idea of what Liquid normally go for with this utility set. Ime goes for that contact, actually dies doing so, with Ultimate having a really nice off angle. And then Liquid's actually in a pretty good spot here, but the problem is they don't have a ton of utility, right? Twist lost, he's got nothing, JKS has a molly. They have 0 flashes on their entire team. So even though they're in a good spot, they do actually have to do these sorts of duels. Otherwise, they're either going back B where they have 0 control, which is not great, or they're walking into an Opper, like they're running into a spot where an Opper could be holding and not flashing them off. So they kind of have to do some of these lurk plays. And unfortunately, one of those gets caught off guard by Alexi B. And then JKS looking on this side, I mean, you have to gamble the Opper is going to be on one side or the other. And in this case, the Opper isn't looking towards Arch, but unfortunately, that doesn't matter when Bit hits you in the head with his first bullet. It kind of feels just about the same as fighting against an Opper. And that leaves Yakindar into what is a 1v3 that he actually does a really solid job on. Now in this situation, he knows players are on both sides, so he tries to bait out the jump up from Alexi B, or the swing from Alexi B, and does so very effectively. And then Bit's trapped in pit with, 17 health to work with. And although Yakindar can get that kill, he can't stop JL from shooting him in the back, as JL just took the space that was given to him. So final round of first half, you're actually gonna see Navi go for something with some nades here. And Liquid will go back to that kind of fairly quick top banana control attempt that they were looking for a few rounds prior. They'll molly off corner, Yakindar will jump through with some utility, and Navi just abandoned. Now, they actually want to go for the recontrol of Car, and one of the ways to do that, you can have Alexi B toss this molly right here, Car, as that T molly is going down. But Yakindar finds the exact right timing to catch that, gets the kill. You could argue if he's supposed to swing after that or not, but I think it's fairly natural to swing after that. And you're just going for more control, taking the space that's given to you. Maybe someone else is throwing flashes at the same time or something like that. But either way, that ends up in this situation here, where that jump from NAF to clear apartments is actually heard. And because of that, I think a few seconds later, NAF is either going forward to take apartments control or going back, probably. It's very odd if someone was to do that jump, come here, sit here for a second, and go back around to mid. That doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. So once that jump happens, afterwards, Bit is ready to get aggressive and clear things out. Now, this is also a timing that you might be looking at where T's are looking to get something done this long after that banana control, but Bit clears out the entirety of this side of the map, which allows Ime to rotate his way over. You have JL jiggling with a molly, so he's in a very good situation himself, and also you have some utility down in T-spawn, or in CT spawn, that helps to rotate as well. So Liquid, they're kind of figured out without even realizing that they're figured out. Now that molly might say something, but it doesn't give away the entire thing. And although there's time on the clock, they're not in a great situation to go back because they just don't have any apartments control. And then the B hold from Navi is kind of perfect here. They're just a little not quick enough, right? If Wonderful was here, he'd be able to toss a smoke down and then molly in front of it or something like that if he was where Ime is. But they're still 3 players here and they've got utility. Now, the problem that ends up happening is that JL is going to spot Twists, and he spots Twists looking the wrong direction, and he peeks out again to try and maybe Twist is isolated there because there's a molly down, right? Is he expecting all of Liquid to go through that molly? Probably not, but in theory, he certainly could have waited for a flash because Ime and Wonderful both had flashes they could have tossed above and made that peak kind of free. But I think realistically, if you're JL, you're probably expecting Liquid's not all running through that molly. I think they smoked off that molly. And one of the best things you can do is make first contact, get an initial kill, and then flash to re-peak. So you don't have to waste the flash on the initial peak. But it ends up going quite wrong for JL. However, still Liquid are going to end up winning this because Bit gets that kill from Banana, which means Twists and Ultimate are just kind of in an awkward spot. Twists goes for the kind of play in through the smoke here, which makes a lot of sense. And Ultimate actually does his job quite well, but Wonderful with that jiggle peek really closes off the round, right? Once you're in this situation, although, Ultimate he has a chance at this round, especially because Navi's quite low, it's still that smoke doesn't, I don't think, do him a lot of favors in that situation, and he ends up getting taken down. So at the beginning when I said, yes, this could be considered sort of a fluke, this is one of the situations I'm talking about, because Liquid are down 9-3, and they absolutely need to win this round, and the bomb's about to be planted, and Alexi has a molly and a flash, and Ime has USP armor. But Ime is going to push through this smoke here and just lose a duel, which, yeah, I mean, there's a smoke down. You could try to hold the smoke. It's a little hard with pistols. If you have an M4 or something, you're probably holding that, you know, every time because you just catch people swinging through. And actually, I'm wondering what happened to Ultimate here. Does he get knifed in the back or? Oh my God. That is so unlucky. Oh my, wow. There was a speculation, I think the casters were like, did he get knifed in the back? No, he just got jumping USB headshotted somehow. Well, anyways, with that smoke down, I mean, Ime could have just held that smoke. He wanted to get aggressive. I mean, it's a play where you can catch someone off guard, but it's definitely a risk. And with a molly in Alexi B's inventory, maybe it's not a risk you necessarily need to take. Then Alexi B, I mean, it's going to take Liquid a long time to clear out these angles. Like, it's tough to clear out every angle in this situation. And eventually, he's going to try to go for the molly, but doesn't quite get there in time. Now, the thing is that if that molly had been thrown down, there's no way Liquid win that if the molly got thrown to the bomb because they had no kit. And they spent so much time actually going to clear the site. So there was a very good chance for Navi to win that if Alexi B timed that molly at the right moment, or if Ime got the kill in CT, or if he just survived in CT for a while. I think that the thinking from Ime was likely that, you know, this smoke ends up meaning not that much is the problem if Liquid are going to banana. And they can just like swing in. Alexi B's trying to hold onto his molly. He's got no armor also, so he's trying to play safe. They swing in and then clear like close to the smoke. It can kind of be awkward to hold that smoke in that situation, I think. But unfortunately, it ends up coming back to bite them in this specific round. But then you have Liquid, and because of MR12, I mean, these games turn around pretty quickly, right? You have you can go from 9-3 to 9-6 very fast. One of the things I thought was, I'm going to call this one suspect. So Ultimate peeks down mid and doesn't spawn anything. And I mean, this is an op second round, by the way, which is aggressive. And I think because he's got an op second round, he's looking for a way to make it activate early when it's still very long range. And it's not in a spot where like, I'm holding on to the A site, and if I die here, which I will eventually, I'm going to drop the op and they can use it in the after plan. I think that's the idea here, but I'm not sure that crossing back mid is a perfect idea. Now, he could land that shot most of the time, I think, but it's still just such a risk to be taking with the op in a spot that is realistically retrievable. You know, it is a spot where the gun can be picked up fairly reasonably, and that's what I'm not a huge fan of. But regardless, you do have Liquid with full banana control, so they're in a decent spot, and then Twist is just gonna pull off a 3K. And that's part of what, I mean, when I say Liquid's really good on anti-ecos, it doesn't really need to be strategically that you're great on anti-ecos, although that certainly helps. It can also be that you just have Naf and Twists, who are fantastic players at, you know, taking down players with lesser guns, and if you can just shoot them in the head really effectively, that's gonna help a lot, right? If you don't have Hooksy on your team, I'm sure it helps. But anyways, you do have Navi do a lot of damage, right? You have Wonderful get those 2 kills, and yeah, it's not impossible that he could have killed Yakindar there, but Yakindar actually finds the shot onto Wonderful, and you have the round. But that was suspect, I would say, in terms of the way that was converted. And that means Navi go for yet another buy. This is pretty much the natural thing. If you have CTs, you get the bomb plant, you're thinking about it, and then you have the CTs that lose 4 players. It's very, very natural in this situation to go for the buy. I'll show this play here because this is, again, where Naf's going to end up dying here. They're against the force, so it's like a fairly reasonable buy from Navi. Navi are going for this kind of delayed play. There's the flash from Yakindar. You'll notice that he peeks after the flash, JL peeked before the flash. These are different situations, really. But in any case, Yakindar jump spots 2 players, then Naf wants to throw the utility, and he just gets peeked as he's throwing that utility. You know, I think it's kind of that simple. If we see this from Naf's POV, there's the flash, molly, or smoke deep, then molly, and he swings out off of it. Oh, okay, but the swing is just he just gets caught by 2 players as he's swinging. And then Yekindar just picks up 3 kills. Really well done from Yekindar. I mean, maybe you could, the problem is, in theory, right, you could have a flash for this, right? And maybe that's probably honestly what you want. However, Ime is thinking here, well, it's, what flash am I going to throw? And if they wait for a flash to pop, then Yekindar could back up around the corner, get into B site in theory, right? And then just smoke this off. And although they have a 5v4, it's not the situation they necessarily want. Instead, if this is very similar to the one where Liquid forced through that top banana smoke, instead, if you can beat this arch rotate and you can kill the second player B, then you just kind of win the round on the spot. And I think that's what most teams are going to go for. Now, you could argue there could be a flash that's just like a supportive flash or something, but I think in general, Navi are going to win that the vast majority of the time. Yekindar's not getting more than 1, maybe 2, right? So I see exactly why it went the way it did, but for Navi, that's just quite unfortunate, and that did require Yekindar hitting some very nice shots. I mean, if Yekindar just takes a few extra bullets to kill the first player, he probably dies there, and then Navi are in a very good situation, and Liquid are kind of on a force buy. Instead, you have a 3v1, Ime's on the B site, and he goes for the peek, which makes a lot of sense, but Twist just insta-gives him with an M4 from range. Now, I think on Liquid's CT side, they actually did quite a good job of controlling Banana, much better than a lot of teams do against Navi. Now, in the first game, they really struggled with it, but in the second game, they seem to almost kind of figure out the way JL likes to play this and do a really solid job of shutting it down. But this is one where JL does, what he often does against a lot of teams, which is find an opening where you can catch a player. And Yekindar's jiggling here with the smoke, which is cool, but JL is just going to peek into him and insta headshot him. And this definitely could go a different way, right? JL could chase him down, get the kill, or maybe he just hit a second shot there instead of just the dink and gets the kill. And this definitely could have gone a certain way. If Yekindar died there, that would have been very, very suspect as a round for Liquid, which is, again, what I'm talking about with the intro. But the play from Liquid is actually very interesting. Now, I'm not sure exactly. It does feel like JL's alone here, and the spam, like the Tech 9 spam, feels like JL's alone. That's, often what teams do when they're alone. I'm just noting that they're rotating Yekindar off, and Naf's not even going to play on B site. Now, I think they realized that Navi they didn't get a bomb plant, so Navi's saving here. So Naf doesn't want to give them a free gun if he doesn't have to. If Navi go B, they're going to throw a smoke CT. They're gonna, he can get a spam kill maybe through it. They can have some utility on the retake that's not terrible utility to retake with, and they can go from there. I think the idea is that Yekindar is going to rotate A, and once he gets to A, maybe they can get a bit aggressive and use him as like bait, and they can, maybe take back mid control and then rotate over if they need to. But by the time Yekindar actually gets over to A, Navi are already attacking A, right? But in this case, you have Twist that had already rotated over. I said he rotated over. He plays the A site. What I meant was you have Twist that is in the right position and just hit some shots, and that's that. I mean, you had a nice nade stack there from Navi, which did a very good job of shutting down one side of the attack. But the smoke that gets thrown is the exact perfect counter to that, right? So Ultimate gets the 1 kill, smokes off the site, so Navi have no way of actually clearing him out. Then you buy all the time for the rotate, and you're in a great situation if you're Liquid. So when we look at what is the first real gun round of the half, and that's hilarious that it goes from 9-3 to 9-7 before a real gun round happens, Navi want to set up pretty early. They want to go for this type of B play. They want to really set the tone with some delayed aggression where they catch Liquid, where maybe Liquid fall off of a 3-man stack, or maybe they catch them going for a stack in apartments or something like that, and they've got the boost up. I mean, they take a bit of damage. JL accidentally falls off the wall. Then you have Naf, who's going to throw this flash for Yekindar to swing, which is great, but the problem with this flash is it's either shallow enough that it catches everyone holding these angles, right, like this, or it's deep enough that it catches the guy holding this angle. I don't think there's really any flash that can get both without hanging a little too long for this or going too wide, right? So he's going to throw a flash that JL does not get blinded by because he's not holding it wide enough, right? JL is holding pretty wide, but the flash lands even wider. And so JL, not blind. Alexi B is blind, but JL's not. And he hits a solid shot on Yekindar. And he does almost the exact same thing that we saw Yekindar do, get the first kill, swing in. Now, the difference is that, you know, in this case, Navi have their whole team there. But once Ultimate gets that kill back and then smokes them off, this round basically is immediately reset. And so when it comes to Bit, there's a lot of stuff going on at B. And when that happens, Liquid are going to potentially try and take some map control back as that goes on, right? They're going to try and take mid, and that way they can go for a fast flank, or they can take a lot of control that makes Navi waste time and waste utility if they do want to go back. But a lot of it is, I think, if they're thinking it's a B hit, they can actually, you know, they can set up to go for the flank. But you do have to do this safely, because Bit, you're often going to have this guy lurking in boiler or lurking in mid or whatever. Now, they throw the utility to retake mid, and Bit's thinking, you know, if I can get a kill here, then coming back A is very, very reasonable, and it's probably a decent situation. Anyways, Bit goes through that smoke, and look, that's what I'm talking about when I said that Yakindar's play and Banana can look really bad if it goes wrong, because it looks like he just kind of, I mean, they were in a 4v4, it was like a winnable round, and now they're 3v4, and they lost so much control and all of this, and I mean, yes, true, those are facts, right? However, you need to make your opponents worried about that type of thing. You want to get the information as well as to how many players are in that position, and if he gets the kill there, the information and the ability, I mean, Navi just, he gets that kill, Navi immediately run back from B, they run up mid, there's one guy A, they get the kill, they smoke off Moto, and Liquid is kind of locked out of the round, and I think they were already kind of moving a little bit down Banana at the time, so they would have beat the rotate, I think. And in that case, if Bit gets that kill, it's kind of just like a round one, you know, almost immediately, off a situation where their whole team is B, right? Numbers-wise, it's 4v4, but their whole team is B, right? And they used utility to not get anything, right? So it's not like they were in a great spot. So I completely understand the play from Bit. Then late round, they're going to go for the rotate in, but man, does Twists ever destroy people. Like, you know, he absolutely murks people, and just drawing that attention, he needs to get that first kill there, right? If he doesn't get that first kill, then the swing in happens, and it's a very different situation for JKS to be in that spot if Twist doesn't get the first kill. But Twist is Twist, and Twist is on a heater for the last lifetime. And hits the shot immediately, which opens a lot of space for JKS to get things done there as well. Now, when it comes to this round, Navi actually go for an AK on Bit, and mostly a save for the most part on the rest of the players. I mean, they don't really have any armor, they have some utility, and you can go for this type of play where you're kind of relying on Bit to catch a time and get a kill. Now, on CT side, you've got Ultimate, who's opping down middle. That does not seem to go very well for him in this game. They just don't give him an easy target, and he doesn't hit the targets they give him, right? But what Navi are really looking for is for Bit to find an opening, find a timing to catch someone, and they're just gonna go for it, right? Bit peeks out Boiler. When Ultimate is spotted here, one of the most common rotations for an opper when spotted at this, one of the things they might jump into apartments, right? That's fair. But one of the main things you're going to do is, as an opper, you're just going to rotate right back around, make a loop, and then hold this angle. So a Bit can actually find a timing where it's like, hold up, the opper isn't truck. Odds are very high he's wrapping around arch, so I can try and find a timing where I get ahead of that, get out of the position, and I can walk up lane. And that's exactly what he does to find the kill onto Twist. But the key in this round is that Naf is here. If Naf wasn't here, I think this round could go quite a bit differently, right? But Naf is here. Now, Bit knows JKS is likely in pit, so he's kind of looking for that player. He thinks he's got all the time in the world, right? Because in theory, if Naf was just playing B, he would be where Yakindar is right now, and he would have basically all the time in the world, right? And his team is coming up Arch to try and lock down that rotate to begin with. So he does, in theory, in his mind, have all the time in the world to take this duel. And he wins it. And then he runs straight to go for the plant, because that's the whole point of the setup. The whole point of the strat is Bit gets that kill. We're gonna attack arch side. We're not gonna let the rotate get into sight, so that Bit has time to actually get another kill and clear out the bomb site, because he knows where JKS is gonna be based on where he got the kill on Twist. But there's Naf there. So scores all tied up. This is kind of a pivotal gun round. And look, Liquid don't have infinite money, right? They've won 6 rounds in a row, but they don't have that much money. So Navi still have more or less the opportunity to actually make this work. They'll send Ultimate towards car, and I did find this kind of funny that Ultimate doesn't peek car. It's Yakindar that peeks car, because I think he sees there's a tiny gap there in that molly. He goes for the peek car, and I mean, with the molly, this molly kind of covers like this, and one of the places you can be with that molly, if you're not if you're throwing it like that, is you can be car. And I think Alexi B tries to spam this, or is he spamming? He's spamming the corner, actually. Either way, one of the things I found funny is someone told me in the interview after the game that Yakindar said he was like, he tells Ultimate sometimes what peaks to go for. He like micros Ultimate. And I thought this was one of the situations where that exactly happens. Because here's what happens. Ultimate peeks this out, gets flashed, and the smoke is still up, right? So he's not safe to re-peek, but I think a lot of operas will re-peek here because you can catch the first player running in. But you have to do it kind of quick, right? Because if they can get like close enough, then you can't get away. But Ultimate doesn't want to go for the repeak, and Yakindar's like, hold up, we're going for this repeak. And it almost looked like this is where it's like, bro, just repeak, just go for it, right? So he actually walks in, but the funny part is the timing of this repeak, okay? Because when this happens, they initially jump across. So they want to check if there's an opera here, right? I believe Alexi B is going to jump across, right? No. Someone jiggles this. Hold on. Who jiggles this? I think it might be Wonderful, actually. I think Wonderful might jiggle this. Someone jiggles this! Who is it? It's JL. It must be JL. Tell me I just didn't completely screw this up. No, they don't. Okay. No, so there's nothing funny at all about that. Ultimate just peeks out and gets a kill. I mean, the timing's perfect. If he's a second later, then Wonderful's just posted onto him and he dies. But he's got the right timing. He gets 2 kills. And I mean, that's the problem of Navi in this situation, right? Because Navi, they want to try and take this a little silently, right? Which is like logical. If you don't use a flash, then you can get obviously very close up. And depending on the setup that's being played, especially if it's like a rifler jiggling, or if Yakindar is like holding down banana with the rifle, which is crazy to do with no smoke, but you know, whatever. You can catch a kill, or you can catch someone doing something they maybe aren't supposed to be doing, but you do have the problem of if there's an opper there, you're screwed. So there's upsides and downsides, right? And the thing to understand is like, most of the time I feel like pro teams aren't really making these huge mistakes where it's like, why didn't they throw a flash? They could have just flashed it. And it's like, yes, it's not that they don't know they could flash it. It's that it plays into a bigger overall idea of the round, right? This is why I tell people, like, if you want to learn CS, it can sometimes be hard to watch the pros in pro games, specifically in pro matches, because there's so many reasons they're doing what they're doing. You know, it's not like an accident they didn't throw that flash. Although I'm sure it could be sometimes, like generally it's not going to be an accident they didn't throw that flash. There's going to be a reason. But in this case, Ultimate stays B. Sometimes you might have him rotate off, or you might like swap him over to Rifler. But he stays B, still has the smoke, drops the smoke down, and then you've got Yakindar here just in the perfect spot to deal with this. And I mean, Navi, once they get smoked off of that flash, right, because they flash to try and bust in, but they get smoked off, which means they have to bust through afterwards. Basically they're screwed as long as Ultimate hits his shots, right? In these late round scenarios, if your opera's alive and your opponents don't have any flashes, all you really need is your opera to hit the shots. And in this case, Ultimate hits all the shots. So I wanted to highlight this round kind of quickly because it's not a full buy from Navi. They yet again just have Bit with an AK, and when Bit's on point and he's hitting a lot of shots, I think this play makes a whole lot of sense, right? His aim is just so insanely good. If he's on point, you can have him make this play. Now, I'm not sure if Navi were like confused or if they're just wasting time to draw out utility or something, but they were like running around on T stairs for a good like 10-15 seconds. Maybe they were listening for the utility that Liquid was throwing to try and try to understand what setup they were in. I think that would maybe make sense, or maybe they were just running around on T-stars fucking around, or maybe they were like running around and their coach was like fist bumping them, and like a fist bump on the left meant go A and a fist bump on the right meant go B or something like that, like, you know, or like if he like does like a high five, it means go apartments, right? But anyways, you actually have Yakindar here jump spotting like this, which maybe is exactly what Navi were trying to counter with that wonderful peak before. Maybe they were expecting this exact play after that initial smoke goes down, and that is exactly what he's doing here. And there was an initial smoke to take banana control, and you have a 4 stack on B. And look, I mean, teams are still doing this, even against pistols. But what I thought was kind of funny is that Yakindar is going to Jail's going to try and chase his ass down. He's going to try and chase him down. He's going for gold, right? I think they get a flash here. Yeah, there is a flash this time. He's going for the chase down. He's going straight up. He smokes off the molly. And I think what happens is Yukindar probably calls that like, oh shit, things are going wrong. And the key is Naf is not close enough that if Yukindar dies, he can actually get here. Yukindar dies, they pivot, throw a smoke, and Naf could go through the smoke, but that's risky against pistols because look, you can get a kill, but the reason it's risky against pistols is because if you die, you're giving them a gun. Because dying is not a big deal. No biggie. If you die against pistols, no biggie at all. As long as you're not in a situation not to give them a gun, right? As long as you're in long range. But Twist, I think, the reason I think all of this is because Twist just walks through the mid smoke, right? I don't think he's doing this if he thinks it's only one player. I feel like he probably isn't. Maybe, but I feel like he probably isn't. But yeah, he walks through and there goes the flash. I think Alexi B hold on. Did Alexi B have a flash? He had a flash. Usually you have a flash from your mid player also, right? No, he actually doesn't have a flash. Okay. He threw it to take banana, which makes sense. A lot of the time you have a flash from a mid player that helps deal with a lot of positions. But once Alexi B dies there, then, you know, there's no reason for anyone not to be looking at apartments, and it goes really well. So when I say Bit seems to play kind of like worried in apartments until an Opera is spotted, I think this is a decent round to showcase that, because you actually have Ultimate playing B. He's not going to make any sound, not going to get spotted at all. You have Yukindar actually going into apartments with JKS. And JKS is going to die to Ime. Ime jumps across, and JKS is just... that jiggle is just awkward, and he gets kind of caught. Then Bit, in theory, like, if you're playing a pug, what you really want is you get this kill, and you're like, okay, long haul player, you're going to peek out here. You're going to make sure that I can't die to someone that's, like, pivots over and, like, kills me from here, right? But there could be an Opera holding this angle. Wouldn't be unreasonable, right? And I think Bit wants to play it fairly safe, so he doesn't go that deep, right? They have an advantage. Do you want to give it back if there's an Opera there? He doesn't peek it, but then Ime is in here and he starts spamming, and then Bit wants to peek once he starts spamming, because once he starts spamming, that kind of takes out anybody that would be holding this angle. But the problem is, this time there's a rifler here, which I guess probably Liquid don't do all that often, and the rifler kills Ime, and it's like, okay, fuck. And not only that, but he gets a decent duel on a Bit. It's like, it's Bit, right? If this was like Hooksy, Yukindar could get two here. But this is the round, by the way, where Ime says, that means the Opera's B, right? He does, they showed him die, and he goes, the Opera's B then, right? Which means, that's a pretty risky peek to make, JL, if you know the Opera's there. I mean, actually, it's I don't know, how risky is it? I've died doing that jump, but usually I think you die doing that jump when it's already smoked off and he's already pre-aiming that. Now, JL maybe wants to push Ultimate off. This does give them the opportunity to go back B a little bit later, which is really a big deal. But it also, maybe they're hoping it draws a bit of a rotate, maybe something like that. But it obviously it's not, because JL, or Ultimate rather, has a molly and two flashes and a smoke. There's no reason for a rotate to happen. They're already set up in this mid play. There's no reason to force a rotate. You just kind of gamble here. Now, what's interesting is that a lot of teams are throwing a flash. It's like very common that lands in a specific spot, and Navi's one of them. That lands like here. Now, back in the day, not even back in the day, like a couple years ago, what you would often see teams do is they would throw two flashes to take mid. They would throw one flash that lands right here, like a close flash that's going to get someone here, and it's going to get someone here, and it's going to get someone here, like all these people. And you throw the bounce flash that's going to push an Opera off of this angle, right? Or a rifler that might want to re-aggress off of that flash or whatever. But in this case, it's tough to throw the right flashes now, because you have to worry about this angle, so it needs to be deep enough to get this angle, but if it's deep enough to get that angle, then it's also anybody here can easily turn from it, right? There's lots of problems. But one of the flashes that teams are throwing a lot is one that lands right where this one lands, which is behind the pillar. Now, what I thought was odd, that Wonderful just bails. Alexi B dies, and he just bails. And I'm thinking maybe the thought process there is that Liquid like to be in like double truck setups in these spots, like because Naf could be truck, definitely. I mean, he is a B player, but it's been a long time where Ultimate was B for a long time. He had a lot of control, so it would make sense if they were like double truck. I don't know. I thought it was very odd that he bailed. Now, it actually was perfect, right? Because Naf naded this smoke. So if Naf nades that smoke, then if Wonderful had swung to trade, he probably would have just died. But you don't know the future when you're playing the game. You either swing or you don't, right? Look, the problem is, like, if he dies, then it makes the round kind of unwinnable. But at the same time, you have 2 players there, so they can both swing. And Liquid does the exact same thing in this exact same game. I think I even like mentioned it. They double swing mid, second player gets the trade. That's the whole point, right? But yeah. Anyways, that nade from Naf, by the way, let Navi know that Naf was A. And that's kind of notable. It does change the way the rest of the round might play out. It let Navi know that Naf was Arch with the nade also, obviously. Now, in this case, Ultimate is pretty far back. He still has a smoke and a molly, but there's so much time on the clock that I think, Twist feels that he needs to get some information because there's just too much time for Navi to go for anything. I think it's reasonable, specifically because Wonderful didn't go for the trade. It seems so odd that Wonderful didn't go for the trade there if Wonderful was there. And the question is, does he get spotted? So Wonderful did get spotted with the bomb, and it is quite a rotate to make your way back around. Plus, if there was a player in apartments, you might expect that he would peek from boiler at the same time because that's the easiest way to deal with these types of plays, is to like peek from multiple angles. So Twist is maybe thinking that it's very likely Navi are going back to B here. Twist doesn't have much utility on his belt, so it's fine for him to get aggressive compared to like Naf, who's got a smoke or whatever. It felt like they were going back B here. And especially, the reason I said Naf's nade from Arch was relevant, I think that nade from Arch also applies to the idea that maybe they go back fast B because they know we have 2 mid, right? I think that might also apply. But you end up with Twist dying, and you end up at the 2v3. Now, Naf is in pretty much the best spot you can be in to hold this type of situation, but he should never be able to hold this type of situation, right? It just shouldn't be possible, but Bit kind of whiffs. Yeah, Naf just swings out. Naf swings out so fast compared to when the molly lands, right? Like the molly's coming, he swings out instantly. Bit doesn't want to peek out before the molly, because if you peek out before the molly, the guy could just be posted on you. So he peeks out right after the molly. He just can't quite track Twists. And then you have JL and Wonderful together. Now, JL is just making sure that he can trade, or making sure that Wonderful can trade. The problem is that, like, even though Naf does an amazing job there, that's what happens when you're in those spots where even though you get 2, your rotate is so far away that they're going to plant the bomb and win, like get into a complete after plant, even in the 1v1. So even though Naf gets 2 there, which is really great, it's one of those spots that just feels so bad. It's like I either get all 3 or we're losing this round most of the time. It's like, it's so unfortunate, but that's the reality. That's the reality of those late round kind of pit situations, unless you can get into an after. Because if he survives, right, if he's somewhere else, like he's like Moto or whatever, then he can track where the player is in the after plant a little more easily, and that makes a big difference. But so Bit is going to play pretty passive here in apartments, and makes a lot of sense, especially if you have a Galil. You've got this aggressive play from Ultimate and JKS, and this is, why I don't know if this is true or not. I feel like I might be taking crazy pills, or I might have an idea where it does feel like Bit plays quite passive when he doesn't know where the op is, but this isn't, I don't think, around where that necessarily comes into play. You'll see Naf play like this often too, playing quite passive. I've been really impressed, by the way, with Twist's calling. And this isn't really a bad thing about Twist's call. I've been really impressed on Twist's calling, especially late in games, catching players off guard, or catching teams off guard, really making good calls at the right moment. I think he's done a very good job of that. This is one where I think there's a good call from Alexi B, because Liquid on this side of the map are going to try and attack JL, because JL does his standard thing where he's making lots of noise, but the rest of Navi are doing their thing, but they're not going to make much noise themselves, right? Alexi B will throw this nade and not go B sometimes. Like, JL will be alone and the same amount of utility will be thrown. And I think they want to make it look like there's not that many players here and it's just JL, so that Liquid will try and fight JL, which is exactly what they're doing. But then they'll be able to kind of run in afterwards. And so there's a smoke down, no flash, just a swing out. JL honestly could get that kill some of the time. I think he was lining up a peak corner, so he was like not holding his crosshair, like he was holding his crosshair very tight, and then that wide swing catches him off. Then Alexi B does an amazing job of keeping Naf here for quite a while, And so Naf almost gets caught. Now this rotate from Naf is crazy. He smokes that off, he rotates back around, Twist is gonna come through the smoke himself, and Twist ends up getting one and dying, which is fine. But now you're Navi, you're like, okay, well there was a guy's site and he fell back into the site. He's gonna be on the site. There's a guy's site. There in fact is not a guy's site. Naf, this is 3,000 IQ. What people are saying about like that JL play where he lets you Kindar into CT is smart. It's a smart play, but it almost made itself, I feel like. That play from Naf, I feel like that's a 3,000 IQ play. Where you rotate back around, Twist goes through ahead of you, Twist gets one, and there's no reason for them to expect the second player there. There's no reason to expect that second lurk through the smoke. That's such an insane play to rotate all the way around off the site. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. He was injured as well. You know, the play itself makes a ton of sense, especially because I think Twist was rotating in with no utility. So here's the thing. If Twist is rotating in and there's a flash in spawn and he calls, I can flash for you, then Naf would probably fall back new box or somewhere, and then Twist would use that flash and Naf would get a kill off of it. That's a very likely scenario. But Twist rotating in with no flash just makes that play make so much sense. It just makes so much sense. Dude, it's crazy. It's crazy how good Naf is, dude. I played this kid. Okay, when I was still competing, and by competing I mean bad, but playing tournaments and playing Counter-Strike every day. I played in a tournament called Vancouver in 2012. Oh my God, I'm old. I think it was 2013, 2012. Mahone was on my team, actually. My team had Mahone. We had Laz, who's a caster now. We had, I think we had someone else. Oh yeah, we had Trick Systems, who's Naf's brother, who also played CS. We played Naf in the grand final. This kid was 13. He might have been 15. I think he was fucking 13. This kid was 13. He dropped like 40 kills on us in a map. It was crazy. And then you know the worst part, by the way? The worst part, it's on YouTube. You can find it, but they don't have map 1 where I carried. You know, it sucks because if I can't link people that because I did really bad the second map and I think I did like okay the third map. And the casters keep talking about how I carried map 1 and it's like, can he activate again? Can he do it? And I don't, but they don't have map 1. They only have map 2 and map 3 on YouTube, or maybe only map 2 where I do terribly. They don't have map 1. Why don't they have map 1? Dude, it's the map. They keep talking about it. But anyways, Naf carried that team hard. His team sucked. Maybe, I don't even remember how good his team was. But I do know I think we went 3 maps, maybe only went 2 maps. Either fucking way, man. Naf was unbelievably good at like 13, okay? He was unbelievably good. This guy's been good for like longer than half the viewers have been alive. Anyways, Liquid this time around get quite aggressive. I mean, I just think the reads that Liquid make on like in general have just been so good on their CT side, and macro wise, like calling wise, I feel like their T sides have been extremely effective as well. Anyways, the aggression down banana, this time they hear a lot going on at mid, and Navi doesn't have a ton of utility, right? This is final round. They invested a lot in the previous round. They weren't on a full loss bonus because of the round before. You know, Navi are likely to go for this type of play where they're kind of grouped up together. Very similar to how Liquid did that in the previous game in the final round of the game. They were grouped up together. You're looking for that type of play in these types of situations, I think, with Tech 9s and things like that. And Liquid understand that, so they actually just push straight through, down bottom mid. They get very aggressive. They look for something here, and they find it. They find JL not ready, and this is actually, honestly, for Liquid, this honestly feels awkward. Like, think about this from Liquid's POV. It's like, okay, so we don't really want to move up here because we could just get peeked from both sides with Tech 9s, and that could go really badly. But we don't really want to stay back because they can peek us from here and here and here. Like, and we can't back up into pit, like into T-stairs or whatever. I don't know. I've been in this situation before. It feels awkward, but maybe it doesn't feel awkward if you're actually good at the game. But Yukindar keeps going up, and Naf is ready for the balcony peek, but he's also ready to trade if someone peeks out on him from Boiler. This is a situation where maybe you have to bait a little bit. Like, baiting gets a bad rap. The thing is, if Naf holds here actively, and then he gets peeked out and killed from here, and then someone peeks out and kills and shoots Yukindar, or like, and then someone peeks out from Boiler, well, then Yukindar just dies and they lose both players and they possibly lose the round, right? Sometimes you have to bait because if you die first, you lose the round, but if you get the trade, you win the round, you know? But eventually he does, like, he holds that for a second, goes forward because Ikenor was getting pretty aggressive. Then you have a situation where you have Wonderful 1v4, and although we killed Twist on second round with that Tech 9 play, and when Twist was holding the exact same angle, Naf is just harder to hit apparently, and he wins it. And look at that, 69. Anyways, JKS, I'll say, I think JKS has been what... JKS was almost exactly, I feel like, what you expect from JKS in this tournament, which is good in flashes, but still making some like small errors, like, you know, a couple on Dust 2 I pointed out when I did that demo, and he was making some small mistakes that I think over time he's just going to get better. But I've been really impressed by Twist. I'm going to say that straight up. I don't think I've been that impressed by Snacks on G2 calling. I don't think he's done anything revolutionary, but Twist has just been making some really good reads at the right moments, dude. Really.